Okay, good morning everybody, and thank you for attending our webinar today, using Microsoft Cloud to expand your data center. So just a bit of housekeeping to start with. As the intro just said, the announcer, you are all muted, but if you do need to ask questions, want to ask questions, we encourage that. Then there is a chat box on the right hand side that you can enter questions in, and at the end of the webinar we'll come back to those questions and read a few out and try and answer them. Obviously, if things that we can't answer, we need to go and sort of refer back to colleagues, then we'll do that and send out answers to everyone who's attended. The other thing to mention at the beginning here as well is that the webinar will be recorded and will be made available to you, so you can relive this experience at your leisure and also share with colleagues as required as well. And the last thing to say, there is a sort of pop-up Q&A right at the very end, and if you do want further information or follow-up from Bytes or Refresh IT, and we do Microsoft, then that can be arranged as well. So, back up, sorry. My name's Chris Hibbert, so I'll be sort of hosting this webinar today, and we have our colleagues from Microsoft, Melvin Mann, who will do a brief introduction around Microsoft Cloud, then I'll sort of come back in and talk about our methodology around modernization. We'll then have Refresh IT go through their technology, particularly how we're looking at people's infrastructure and assessing their readiness to move to Azure, and then we'll then talk about the licensing implications around using on-premise or indeed hybrid or cloud-based Microsoft technologies, and then right at the very end we can then discuss how to move forward from here. So I know we have some customers and sort of prospects on the call today. So just a very, very brief introduction to Bytes Software Services. We are, as hopefully many of you know, primarily known for our software reselling business and being a major partner of Microsoft, number one in the UK and I believe number 4 or 3 across Europe. So a major part of our business is Microsoft's technology, and within the cloud space specifically in terms of today's agenda, we represent circa 40% of Microsoft Azure business in the UK. Within the software space, what we try and tend to do with customers is not only sell you software, but with our stand business and our licensing consultants and your account managers, understand first and foremost, what you need and what you have. So essentially, you're only buying things that you need, and then from there, through our services and training business, ensuring that you then take advantage of the investment you've made in software. So whether that's training your end users, your technical people, or indeed having assistance through the Bytes team or through our eco partners in actually delivering that technology into your organizations. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about cloud. So initially, just going to hand over now to Melvin from Microsoft to talk about Microsoft strategy and cloud services.
Good morning. Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. And firstly, I just want to say thank you for organising the webinar. It's great to see. So thank you very much. I just wanted to do a brief introduction of myself. My name is Melvin Mann. I've been working for Microsoft for a number of years. I look after 250 accounts in the UK. Lots of experience. I've been working in the IT industry for now 20 years. And I feel that we're on a very, very exciting time. Over the last years, it feels like again in the dot-com boom era again with the cloud era, exactly that now at the moment. So great to see everybody on the call. Next slide. Microsoft Cloud. I think we've been pioneering this space with Microsoft Azure. It's been fantastic, great jumpstart we've had for a number of years. We're highly regarded as now probably the #1 organisation in this space. We're seeing a lot of companies embracing this technology and really seeing value and return on investment quicker than ever before with the adoption of the cloud. Many reasons why that's happening. There's a perfect storm out there with data explosion, applications, Internet of Things, the first to go to market with new products and services, and that's allowing companies to do that a lot quicker. What the changes we saw in IT that took 5 years, that's happening within 12 months. The speed and rapid changes we're seeing in the industry is phenomenal, and that's allowing new competitors into the market. We wouldn't have saw companies like Airbnb, Uber, WhatsApp, like they've emerged over the last 5 years as we would have saw 20, 30 years ago. And that's simply because they're adapting to modern, simplified IT technology, and they don't have all the legacy of on-prem infrastructure. And we're not saying there's no place for on-prem in the future, and I'm not saying it's all in the cloud. I think there will be very much a flavor of on-prem, hybrid, and cloud, and it's that balance that companies now are working through. But it's a really exciting, great time with huge opportunities. Next slide. I think, as I said, on this slide we talk about why it's been adopted. Again, it's trusted, open, and flexible. How do modern established organizations and companies react to market disruptors? And that has been by agile, quicker to recognize the new opportunities and a service and go to market. And that is simply happening and being enabled with the cloud. Adapting, it doesn't matter if you've got different flavors of technologies running. We're happy to run Windows, Linux, giving you a flexible infrastructure. Pulling in data nowadays is not knowing what you don't know, but you also don't know where you're going to get the answer from. So what we've been doing is with companies is looking at data that they have existingly and also don't have, but where to get it and pull that in, mash that together to get you the one nugget of information that can allow you to make quicker, faster, better insight decisions. And that's what the Microsoft Cloud allows companies to do. It's secure. We're probably one of the most hacked tech company that attempted hacks. We've successfully guarded the software, and again, what I would always say to customers, we've been doing, who builds data centers better than us? It's our business. This is what we do it, regularly. Let us do the hard work, and where companies can do what they do best, and that is grow their business and compete in their market spaces. Next slide.
Thank you, Malcolm. Malvin, sorry, just changed your name all of a sudden. So now, in terms of how do you, and I think as Malcolm was alluding to, how do you gain those insights? So Bytes have developed a methodology, which I'm just going to run through very quickly now, around how we're supporting customers gain those insights into where you are today, and equally, how do you achieve those objectives around cloud, and equally, just in terms of transformational modernization of your estate. The answer may not necessarily always be cloud, but the focus of today's conversation is, how can we support you in that journey? What we're finding when we're talking to customers is there are various different, let's call it challenges or constraints that they have. In the early days, particularly last year, and the year before, we were talking to customers about the end of life of Windows 2003, and that was an absolute catalyst for the consideration of what do we do now? Do we invest in more hardware and capital infrastructure, or do we take this opportunity to move workloads to the cloud? Equally, this year, obviously, we've seen SQL 2005 get end of life, and again, that's a catalyst for people considering maybe moving their SQL databases to Azure. or indeed moving to more sort of hyper-virtualization within their own data centers. But there are many different drivers, and each business is different. It could just be you're looking at achieving new business objectives, and want to effectively try something out, but don't necessarily want to make an initial investment in IT today. Cloud is a perfect kind of platform for doing that. Or it could be, there's questions around the DR capability within the business, or indeed storage capacities and being constrained or filled. What do you do? Again, invest in more hardware and tin, or do we take advantage of some of the investments that the likes of Microsoft have made in cloud platforms and bring that into the business? What we have seen, and it goes back to this kind of the topic and agenda today, it's not really a question of if, but when businesses and customers move into the cloud. And just looking at some of the information and stats from the Cloud Industry Forum, it's now a significant percentage of customers are either have considered or actually have explored and moved some workloads or compute or storage into the cloud. And absolutely, I know this is a Microsoft seminar, but we're obviously aware that Microsoft isn't only the only cloud platform out there. But as Melvin alluded to, does support our customers and all customers to quite an extensive extent. When we look at enterprise modernization then and your journey to the cloud, it's not just about the compute workload. We do consider the whole IT infrastructure. That could be the storage environment, your DR around that as well, and the compute around application services, respectable platform, Windows, Unix, or indeed even the IBM platforms if that's an area of concern for organizations, as well as how your end users access your services. So what's the route into your business over public internet or private internet? And in terms of geographic spread, how do we ensure and how can you ensure that no matter where an end user accesses your compute resources, there is no latency or degradation in the service that they experience? Additionally, we're also considering and looking at your use of the cloud today. So it may be when we look at kind of your modernization objectives or current constraints and issues and challenges, is it about your on-premise infrastructure? Is it about the fact that you've explored the cloud or experimented with the cloud, but you just need that third-party review and health check effectively of, are we doing this right? Our business process is correct. What compute we've moved over, is that in a good state? Is security aspects of how we're using cloud or indeed on-premise and servicing our business in the correct fashion? And when we talk about compute workloads, the questions that customers are asking is like, do we actually need to move? So one of the first things in the consideration, not just on the hardware side, but on the application side, is the opportunity to actually just retire. So don't move things that you're not going to take advantage and gain value out of. Equally, and where a lot of customers have started initially, is just rehosting or replatforming current compute or applications. So that could be internally, so investing in some private cloud technologies and sort of moving and shifting into more hyper-virtualization, or indeed taking infrastructure as a service through public cloud providers such as Microsoft Azure and moving workloads over to Azure, almost an as-is migration. There might be some upgrade and remediation work that is required, but that's kind of typically the simplest move. The next level is then to gain, if you like, greater agility and resilience, is then looking at potential platform as a service. So I mentioned SQL. Again, so SQL Azure is one of the areas equally we're finding a lot of interest and move, but there are other opportunities there within the platform. The real thing that now customers need to think about the adoption of cloud and is thinking first about cloud, so looking at software as a service, how can we integrate software as a service into our business, and looking at the opportunities that the various providers in that space are now bringing to market. Equally, when we think about data and storage, and not necessarily in our database, but actually unstructured storage, there is a stat, and I think it's something like 60% of the actual 7% of the storage capacity in a lot of organizations is actually unstructured data. So that's all those file shares, whether it's media files, images, etc., that we have as end users are now proliferating across the business. And the IT organization has a challenge around how do they keep pace with that. Do we continually add storage and physical compute to ensure that all users and all the kind of data that we're storing and maybe sharing with our clients as well is available, and then what does that mean in terms of backup, restore, etc., and if we make a mistake, what's the kind of ability for us then to restore that? So that's an area where absolutely the cloud can support businesses in taking away that headache and challenge. And equally, one of the big things that we've seen over the last few years, and we've got Dropbox on here, but whatever the public file file sharing facilities are, is, when we're challenged either in terms of mobility, working in different locations, or indeed want to share, corporate information with partners or customers, we're typically using non-corporate technologies to do that, such as Dropbox. Again, through cloud technologies that you have control of, we can address this particular challenge and issue and bring it back under the control of the organization. So in terms of our methodology then, we look at all aspects. So we'll look at the business, your strategy, your corporate footprint, and the structure. We'll look at the business processes. We'll look at the assets that you have, the software assets, hardware assets, lease agreements, are they going to market, etc. We'll use technologies such as Refresh IT that we're going to move on to shortly to assess the current computer landscape, software landscape, and then determine through that discovery exercise, what's the state of play. That's what we then move on to in terms of what we call assess. So assessing whether it's vulnerabilities, opportunities, or risks, to then determine, well, what could the future look like? And that's then the envisioning piece that we'll do with your stakeholders. Say, well, what could we do, whether that's on desktop technologies, compute, cloud, storage, whatever the idea may be or requirements are. And as I say, just to reiterate, it's not always going to be just about cloud. And we'll take your business requirements and challenges to determine what's the right future roadmap for you, and then look at the modernization program, which could be over many years, to shift the organization to achieve the objectives that you require. And then the future then is around managed services. And one of the biggest challenges businesses are now facing, particularly in the asset management space, is not necessarily compliance, but financial controls and assessment. So if we move to future subscription-based or OPEX-based services, how can we ensure that we're getting the best value for money, we're not over-committing and spending where we don't necessarily need to? So if I track back now to the beginning of that discovery exercise, we work with a partner, Refresh IT Solutions, and now Guillaume is going to take you through their technology and process and how we can support you.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Guillaume Lagache, the pre-sales lead for Refresh IT Solution, which is a close partner of Bytes. And what I will show you in the demo of our solution, first, the goal of our solution is to accelerate the time needed to discover, to assess, and to target your servers and the components that sits on your servers to a cloud strategy. It can be in a IaaS strategy or a PaaS strategy. This solution is called Refresh Insights Server and Apps. And what we need is only to have a connection to a Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit servers that you have run on your environment, and we will get this kind of a view with all your servers on your environment. As you can see, I have a lot of servers here. I can, with a simple click, have a first view of what is on the servers, the global specification about the operating system, the CPU, the memory, etc. And a first view on the components that are on these servers. And as you can see, it is the friendly name of the components that you can see here, and not the raw signatures patterns that we can usually find on the servers. And all of these components are grouped by what we call the workloads, databases, line of business, websites, etc., etc. And the last tab about the dependencies, I will come back later on this item. Very, very early in the project, once we have all the data coming from map into our solution, we are able to generate a first and very interesting reports, which we call the RISA dashboard. And I will show you what is this reports, the RISA dashboard. In the first page of this report, you will get a summary of your estates, how many servers you have, and what is the distribution of the components that sits on these servers following the different possible workloads, LOB, database, email and collaboration, file and print, infrastructure and network, web application, etc. to get a first comprehensive view of what are the main semantics, the main kind of workloads that you currently have. Then you will get the distribution regarding the operating systems and the distribution regarding the kind of source architecture, are there virtual or physical servers. Then we will provide a level of detail, workload per workload, starting with databases, with the exact view of what is installed on your servers to identify what are the main kind of components. And as I said, for each kind of workload, the server profile overview, and what it is interesting in this report, and I repeat that you can have very, very early once the solution is running, it is the possible strategies that you will have. The first one regarding the infrastructure as a service strategy, regarding the servers you have, regarding the specification on the servers and the component that sits on these servers. If you want to migrate into Azure in a IaaS strategy, you will need this amount of virtual machine into Azure, basic A2, A3, A4, and it will ease the work of bytes to estimate the running cost of your infrastructure into Azure very, very quickly with relevant and exact information directly coming from your estate. And the second part is regarding the platform as a service strategy. It is the same way, but for the available services into Azure. For instance, the Azure Oracle VM, you will need 13 standard A5 service of this kind, SQL services, the Azure website services with again the sizing, because we coach the specification for each of the websites, and we are able to recommend the relevant sizing in the target, and again it will ease the work to estimate the running costs into Azure. And then in the last section of this report, it will be the detailed for each workload, for each strategies, and with some level of detail with server by server, what is exactly the recommended sizing of the virtual machine into Azure. And as you can see with the color scheme, we can recommend if there is high usage regarding the memory and the CPU currently on these servers, we will flag it in amber, and the recommendation is to jump into the next biggest available virtual machine into Azure. That was for the what we call the infrastructure layer of the application, and now I will switch to the what we call the application layer. I can focus on one specific application that are running on my estate, for instance the Yellow Moon application for this demo. This time in the interface, RISA will show to me only the servers involved in this application, hosting at least one component of my Yellow Moon application with the legend available here. And I can switch into from the info mode to the design mode. In the design mode, RISA will automatically compute for me the list of all the components that sits on the 3 servers in the scope of the Yellow Moon application. And the first job to do is to check if I really need for my application to work all of these components. And for instance, I know that Microsoft Access is installed on one of the 3 servers of this application, but it's not a component of my application, and I simply have to remove it from the application model. You will do quickly this initial check for each of the components, and then you can switch back into the info mode, and this time we will use another report available into RISA, which is the application analysis reports. I will show you what looks like these reports. It is a useful tool that you will use between Bytes and your application owner. I will zoom a little bit. For instance, this is an application analysis report for an application called Proteus running on these two servers, source architecture virtual. And you will get in the light blue cells the list of the components, and the goal is to double check and have a validation from your application owner that my application really needs only these components. And if there is some adjustment, you go back into the application designer and remove or add the specific components. And you will get in the second page of these servers the recommendation about the cloud strategy for my application with all its components. If you want to migrate into Azure as a virtual machine, there is the sizing of the server that you will need to host that component. And if available into the Azure services, we will show you if the component is eligible or not to evolve into Azure as a service. For instance, it is the case for the SQL Servers 2000 to be hosted into Azure SQL services. And you can be more granular to identify what is the needed upgrade for each of the components following the release of the solution. We have specific reports regarding SQL servers, if you get some. For instance, the SQL Server Analysis reports. It is a focus on one specific server hosting SQL, but of course we have more overview reports to show you all the SQL servers that you get in your estates. This one is a focus on one specific servers. You will see what are the enabled SQL services on these servers, how many non-system databases, how many analysis service, and how many reporting services. You will get the detail for each databases within each instances about the amount of table views, size, etc. And what is the eligibility for this database to evolve to this target SQL releases. And we are using the Microsoft SQL Upgrade Advisor to do this job. And you get the level of detail about the reports, how many subscribers, what is the last execution, and the exact outcome from the Upgrade Advisor to identify why my database is not able to evolve to this target SQL Server release. And once you have decided your strategy for your servers, you will schedule the migration of your servers. You will select what is for each of the components that sits on these servers. You will switch to the plain status or analyze or completed status. You will select what is the target you have selected with the application owner and the consultant. Maybe the server name. What is the scheduled date for the migration of this component in relationship with the team involved in the project to migrate this kind of workload, and you will do that for each of the components, for each of the servers involved in the scope of your application, and then you'll be able to generate the batching reports. Because RISA will compute for you batches of servers to migrate together to avoid service interruption, and of course some reports about the overall follow-up of the migration progress. And regarding the batching reports, the last thing I will show you in this demo is that we have a specific view to automatically detect the dependencies between servers. It is the dependency view, and I will show you that for each group of dependencies, if I focus on one specific group, Risa will show me what are the links between servers and other servers, even outside the scope of the initial analysis. You'll get in the Dependencies tab the list of external dependencies. What is the target server name, what is the kind of dependencies, and what is the remote name that is called following the workload. And the workload can be a web application, database application, Oracle or SQL, any resources on the network, on some share, any SMTP relay, etc. And of course, this kind of information are available into reports, which is the server's dependencies reports. And again, we will show you for all the servers, all the dependencies, and all the web application that sits on your estate, the list with exhaustive detail about the dependencies, the name of the servers, the kind of dependencies, the remote application that is called, to don't forget anything during your modernization project. Guys, I think I'm okay for the demo if you want to hand over to you.
Thank you, Guillaume. Yeah, so as you can see, it's very insightful and very rich level of reporting. I'm now going to hand over to our licensing expert, Fabienne, who will then talk you through the implications of sort of the...
Before we sort of hand over to licensing, Chris, can I just make a quick comment regarding Refresh IT? It's Melvin.
I think you can.
Say that again, sorry? I missed
that. It's Melvin. Sorry, I said it's Melvin. I just want to make a quick comment regarding Refresh IT before we hand over to the licensing team.
Okay, sorry, apologies.
It's just sort of saying that we've seen really good benefits of our customers sort of working with Refresh IT, and they've really simplified that process. And one of the things that we're doing as an initiative is we're looking at, we can fund some of these engagements as a business investment fund that I can sort of call upon to engage, refresh, and work with yourselves and Bytes. And I will be more than happy to work with the customers to look at funding options here to fund the activities to really drive and move some of these engagements on. That was all I was going to say.
Okay, thank you. That's great. And we've actually had some experiences of that, and it is a really good incentive and support from Microsoft in the channel to help customers, explore and get on the journey to the cloud. So thank you for that, Melvin. So I will not going to repeat myself, but I'll now hand over to Fabienne to do the piece.
Good morning. So I'm just going to talk to you about the licensing for Microsoft Azure. So Azure has a lot of available services from virtual machine, cloud services, storage, etc. The way these are purchased depends on the services that you're using and on the agreement. Some of the services are available as plans such as Azure Active Directory, Azure Support, but most of the services and what we've talked about today are actually purchased directly in the portal and billed in different ways depending on the agreement. So let's have a look at Azure purchase via an enterprise or a server and cloud agreement. With the enterprise agreement, you would already have a commitment on the desktop product, and you'd be able to purchase Azure as an additional product, and you would get discounts available for the Azure services. You can also purchase Azure as part of the server and cloud enrollment. You may already have a server and cloud enrollment, in which case you would have a commitment based on server products such as Windows Server and SQL Server, in which case the Azure services will be available as an additional 5% discount. A server and cloud enrollment can also be purchased just with Azure, requiring no other commitment on server products. And in that case, you get the same discount level as you do with the enterprise agreement. Now, to use the services either in a server and cloud enrollment or in an enterprise agreement, because they would work in the same way, you would first work out how much services you need within Azure, and as we talked about earlier, that's something that we can help you with, and we'll be able to find out and help you find out the cost of the services on a yearly basis. You would then make a commitment for that cost during the year, and all of the services that you use will be used against that commitment in the portal. You can use more services than the original commitment. This would be billed at the same price but at different times. So let's have a look at an example where, for example, the amount required to use services into Azure would be of £100,000 for the year. So what happens is you make that commitment upfront for £100,000. However, if you, in that case, for example, you only use 75,000 during the year, the monetary commit does not roll over and the amount is lost. So it is recommended to make an annual commitment for slightly less than you require for that reason. You can carry on using the services at the same price if you go over the commitment that you make. So if we go back to the example of 100,000 commitment made to start the year, and you use £40,000 over that commitment, that would actually get charged at the anniversary of the agreement, so long as the commitment is exceeded by less than 50% over the original commitment. You do get notification via emails as soon as you're reaching that commitment. If the commitment that you make is exceeded by more than 50%, so £63,000 over in that scenario, the additional services are charged at the next quarter. You can also raise additional purchases for specific amount of Azure at any point during the year as well. Azure is also available to be purchased as part of the MPSA. The Microsoft Product and Services Agreement is a transactional agreement allowing you to purchase the products and services you require in one single agreement. And with the MPSA, Azure is currently only available as a pay-as-you-go service. So that the services are used within the portal, but this time they're billed quarterly in areas. In future releases, it will also be available as a prepaid services in a similar way in which it currently works in Enterprise Agreement and Server and Cloud Enrollment, as we've seen. So at the moment, if you use Azure with an MPSA, you will be billed quarterly in arrears. So you use the services and you get a bill for those services at the next quarter. But in a few months, when the prepaid option is released, monetary commitments will also be available. And once you run out of that commitment, the billing goes back to pay as you go. With Azure, there's also a new software assurance benefit that's been released called the Windows Server Hybrid Use Benefit. With the Hybrid Use Benefit, you can actually use your own Windows Server licenses with software assurance in Azure. And so what you pay for in that case is the non-Windows rate virtual machines. This can reduce the cost for your Azure VMs by up to 47%. And how does this work? Both the Windows Server Standards and Datacenter are eligible for this benefit. With Windows Server Standard with software assurance, you get up to 2 VMs in Azure with up to 8 cores, or 1 VM with up to 16 cores per license. However, if you do lose your on-premises rights, so you can only use the license either in Azure or on your servers. With the data center license, the same virtual machines are available, so 2 VMs with up to 8 cores or 1 VM with up to 16 cores. However, you can actually carry on using your own servers on premises. So if you already have Windows Server Data Center with software assurance that you're using on your own servers, you can also use at the same time those VMs in Azure, so you can start saving for those virtual machines in Azure. The way you normally purchase virtual machine in Azure would be to purchase the compute power along with the Windows Server image billed per minute. With the hybrid use benefit, you only actually pay for the compute power, and you use your own licenses with software assurance to install the actual Windows image. Now normally when you buy a VM with the Windows Server image in Azure, the Windows Server image itself is about half the cost of the whole VM, so you do save about 47% by using your own license on Azure. Once you've used that benefit, you just use the Azure VM at the non-Windows rates, and you do have 90-day reassignment rule with that as well. Another benefits that you to leverage your current licenses in Azure with software assurance is the license mobility software assurance benefit. That is available for all server applications such as SQL Server. The license mobility for software assurance will allow you to take your licenses from your own premises data center to Azure so that you can use your existing licenses in the cloud instead of purchasing the images in Azure, again saving you money. To be able to do this, you must have software assurance active on the core licenses, and you do have to buy enough core licenses to cover the virtual machine in Azure. Or if you have server in CALs and that's how you're currently licensing it, you need software assurance on the server and the CALs.
Thank you, Fabienne. Very informative and gives us some good insights into how we can take advantage of our current licensing, as well as how, if and when, more when, we do move to Azure, how we can obviously finance that and plan that to our advantage, hopefully. So next question is really the end of the webinar now. You know, what next? So you've heard some useful insights into licensing models, equally into how we can do the discovery and assessment with the Refresh IT tool, and equally just to wrap that all around our methodology into how to do the initial discovery piece, then assessment piece. The way that we currently engage with customers, we have this called a stage 1 assessment and planning that we do work with Refresh on, and it's really a question of saying, what's the scope of the initial piece of work? Is it primarily our data center, our SQL estate, the whole lot? Not a problem. It's really a question of priorities or challenges, or identifying what the opportunities may be, and then scoping out the relevant project. As Malvin has said earlier, for that stage 1 assessment, and potentially even beyond, Microsoft are supporting customers in that activity, so there is funding available to support that initial assessment. So you could do that initial piece of work, in many cases, absolutely free of charge. So there's a very positive and a good thing. Another thing I know that Microsoft are doing, I know we have some Oracle people on the call, but I think Melvin equally didn't mention that Microsoft are also offering some incentives around moving Oracle to Azure SQL as well. So many things. So I would urge you to talk to your account manager or your Microsoft account manager in terms of how can Microsoft assist you and also working with the likes of Bytes and Refresh in your journey to the cloud. So I think that's it for today. I'm not sure if any questions have been posted into the chat room. My colleague's just checking right now, but if you do have any sort of questions burning, I'd encourage you to do so. So we'll just give it a sort of couple of seconds to see if anyone does post a question. Doesn't look like it. So thank you very much for your time. Hopefully it's been really informative. Just to remind you, the webinar will be available to you to review. And equally, I say, urge you again to contact your account manager if you do need any further information or follow up to this webinar. So thank you very much.